Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. My 38th birthday was supposed to be simple. Amy insisted on planning everything, said she wanted a night worth remembering. I didn't argue. I just showed up at the restaurant she chose, a place so expensive the waiters walked like they floated. I got there at 7. Amy told me she'd be right behind me. By 8, I had refilled my water twice, declined the dessert sampler the waiter kept suggesting, and watched the couple next to me celebrate their anniversary. The waiter kept glancing at the door and then back at me, as if making sure I hadn't been abandoned. By 8:30, even the bartender looked uncomfortable. At 8:55 p.m., the hostess came over and asked softly, "Sir, are you still expecting someone?" I nodded once. "Yes." I didn't bother checking my phone again. Amy hadn't replied to a single message. I was close to standing up and leaving when the entire room shifted, heads turned toward the entrance. Amy walked in like she owned the building. But she wasn't alone. A man I'd seen before walked beside her. William, Amy's coworker. His hand was wrapped around hers. He had the kind of smile that said he thought he was winning something. My stomach didn't drop. My hands didn't shake. I just sat there, watching them approach my table as if the whole walk was a performance. Amy stopped beside me, crossed her arms, and said loudly, "See, William? I told you Edward would still be sitting here. He never pushes back." William smirked. "Oh, hey, man." Before I could speak, Amy leaned in and kissed him. Slow, exaggerated, more for the audience than for him. Then she looked at me. I can't pretend anymore. I want more out of life, and William understands that. I stared at her for a few seconds, calm, steady. Then I stood up, straightened my jacket, and said, "Thank you for making everything clear." I pulled out my wallet, placed cash on the table for the drink I'd finished an hour ago, and nodded at William. "Take care." Then I walked out. No scene, no shouting, no begging, just a clean exit into the night. When I stepped out of that restaurant, I expected anger to hit me, maybe humiliation, something. But nothing came. Just a strange, steady quiet. On the drive home, I kept thinking about how far Amy and I had drifted from the beginning. 4 years earlier, she was the one who said she liked that I was grounded. "You're stable, Edward," she used to tell me. "Safe in a good way." Back then, she meant it. We met through a mutual friend at a small birthday gathering. She talked about big dreams, spontaneous trips, living boldly. I talked about work, building something from scratch, planning for the future. Somehow it worked, or at least I thought it did. I didn't hide that I ran a software company, but I didn't advertise it either. I lived in a modest place, drove a normal car, and didn't brag about numbers. Amy said she liked that I wasn't trying to impress anyone. And at the time, she wasn't either. The shift didn't come all at once. It crept in, small comments at first. "Why don't we ever go anywhere fun? Everyone I know is upgrading their cars." "You act like an old man sometimes, Edward." It wasn't the words, it was the tone. Like she was testing boundaries. Her part-time marketing work never amounted to much, but her spending grew as if it did. Brunches with friends, new shoes for meetings, last-minute trips she insisted were career-related. She said she needed to look the part, though no part seemed to pay her anything. I noticed changes around the same time. The excitement in her eyes faded when she looked at me. Late-night client calls, her phone flipping face down when I walked into the room. Weekends, she claimed she needed space to focus. I didn't confront her. Not because I was scared, because I wanted clarity, not excuses. When someone is drifting, you don't pull them back. You watch where they go. And now I knew exactly where she'd gone. That moment wasn't a surprise. It was confirmation. When I got home after the restaurant, the place felt different. Not emptier, just clearer. Like all the noise Amy had created finally stopped. I walked through the living room, past the photos, past the shelves full of things she insisted we needed for aesthetic. None of it meant anything to me now. It was all just clutter from a life that had been sliding off its rails for months. I stood in our bedroom doorway for a moment, taking in the mess she always said she didn't have time to organize. Piles of clothes, scattered makeup, half-open delivery boxes. I realized something simple. This wasn't my home with my partner. It was my house with a visitor who never planned to contribute to anything inside it. So I started packing. Not angrily, not in a rush, just focused. I grabbed boxes from the hall closet. I filled them one by one with her things: dresses, bags, shoes, hair tools, stacks of work materials, and the old laptop she claimed she needed to become more productive. I didn't throw anything. I didn't break anything. I didn't want a reason to deal with her drama later. When the boxes were full, I labeled each one with her name and taped them shut. Then I called a 24-hour moving service. "Can you deliver these to a nearby storage unit?" I asked. "Yes, sir. Tonight?" "Yes." The driver came within an hour. We loaded everything into the truck, and I followed them to a storage facility 10 minutes away. I rented a small unit under Amy's name and paid for the first month up front. By the time I got back home, it was close to midnight. I sat at the dining table, opened my laptop, and froze the supplementary card she used. I changed the password on the joint streaming services. I removed her fingerprint from the door lock. No hesitation, no second thoughts. Amy made her choice at that restaurant. Now I was making mine. Amy showed up the next morning the same way she left my life: loud, dramatic, and uninvited. I heard the pounding on the front door before I even finished my coffee. 3 heavy hits, then her voice stretching down the hall. "Edward, open this door right now. What is wrong with you?" I didn't rush. I took one more sip, set the mug down, and looked at the security feed. She wasn't alone. William stood behind her, hands in his pockets, shoulders tight. He looked like a man who regretted being exactly where he was. Amy tried the door code again, jabbing the keypad with her finger. When the lock buzzed red, she spun around and hissed at William. "I told you he changes things just to spite me." Then her eyes landed on the note I had taped to the door. "Amy, your belongings are in storage unit 12B. Edward." She read it 3 times, face twisting with every pass. "This is insane," she snapped, pounding again. "Edward, you can't just kick me out of my own home." Her words made William flinch. I opened the door just a few inches, enough for her to see me, not enough for her to push inside. She looked furious, confused, and embarrassed all at once. "Morning," I said calmly. She pushed the door with her palm. "Move, I'm coming in." "No," I said. "Your things are in the storage unit. The address is on the note." Her mouth fell open. "This is our home. You can't lock me out." I shook my head. "It's my apartment, Amy. I owned it before we met. You never paid a bill here, and you know that." William shifted again, avoiding eye contact. Amy's voice cracked. "Last night was a mistake. I was overwhelmed. You're blowing this way out of proportion." I closed the door gently, locking it with a soft click that cut off the argument instantly. The quiet that followed was better than any apology she could have faked. Amy didn't disappear quietly. If anything, the silence lasted about 20 minutes. Then my phone lit up like a broken traffic light. Missed calls, long messages, voice notes that swung between crying and screaming. I didn't answer a single one. I sat on the couch with my laptop open, finishing work while her notifications popped and buzzed in the background like distant fireworks. Eventually the calls stopped, and the group chat started. "Amy says you threw her out for no reason. She's telling everyone you had some kind of breakdown. Man, what happened last night?" Amy was doing what sore losers do, rewriting the story. According to her, she didn't show up to my birthday dinner with another man. She didn't kiss William in front of me either, not the way I remembered it. And somehow I overreacted to a simple conversation about our future. I answered none of those messages at first. I chose who to respond to carefully, the people who deserved the truth, friends who'd known me longer than she had even been in my life. To them, I sent one simple reply. Amy arrived at my birthday dinner holding another man's hand and kissed him in front of me. I asked her to leave. Everything else is noise. I didn't attach anything. I didn't rant. Just facts. A few minutes later, one friend replied, "Then she lied to us. Thanks for clearing it up." Another one said, "Wow, I'm sorry, man." A third, "People saw her come in with him. We were at the bar downstairs. We thought it was a joke." Her version of the story collapsed fast after that. At noon, I got the next wave, her mother, Helen. She called 5 times before I picked up. When I finally answered, her voice came out hot. "How dare you treat my daughter like trash? You threw her out on the street. What kind of man does that?" "A man who watched her walk into a restaurant with another man," I said quietly. Helen went silent. Suddenly she had another call she had to take. Funny how fast anger dies when truth walks in. By the next morning, everything felt lighter. The phone was finally quiet. No calls, no voice notes, nothing. Around 10, a single email notification appeared, from William Adams. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. His message was long, but the first line told me everything. "Edward, I owe you an apology." He wrote that Amy told him our relationship was basically over, that I was distant, cold, and controlling. According to her, I refused to let her leave peacefully, so she needed him there for support. He said, "I thought you were the kind of man who would explode last night." That's what she told me. He admitted he felt sick watching the scene at the restaurant replay in his head. "I didn't know she planned to embarrass you like that. She told me it was the only way to force a clean break." Then he mentioned the moment at the door. The boxes already moved, the calm in my voice. "That wasn't the man she described to me," he wrote. "Honestly, I don't think she ever described you accurately." He said Amy called him non-stop afterward, at first begging, then demanding, then accusing him of ruining her life. When he refused to let her stay with him, she shifted to guilt. "You can't abandon me now, William. I chose you." He ended the email with, "I'm sorry for getting involved. I won't be seeing her again." I didn't reply. There was nothing to say. By evening, a message came from a mutual friend. "Dude, Amy is already asking people for a place to stay. Things are falling apart fast." I didn't respond. Some endings write themselves. Amy's life didn't unravel slowly. It fell apart like someone had cut the strings holding it together. I didn't follow the details closely, but updates found me anyway. Mutual friends, neighbors, and even a coworker who knew her from a short-term project sent pieces of the story without me asking. First came the money problems. Amy tried using the frozen credit card at a boutique. When it declined, she made a scene loud enough that the manager asked her to leave. She texted me afterward, "You're punishing me financially. This is abuse." I didn't reply. The card was under my name. That wasn't punishment. That was responsibility. Next came the housing issue. She bounced between friends' apartments for a week. Each time she stayed just long enough to create discomfort, leaving clothes around, borrowing things without asking, acting like she'd move in permanently. One friend messaged me, "She's not okay, man," and she won't admit it. Eventually, she ran out of couches to use. She ended up at her mother Helen's house, which wasn't the glamorous environment she bragged about online. A small, cramped place far outside the city. A place Amy had mocked when we first met, calling it temporary until I build my brand. Temporary became her only option. Her job situation collapsed right after. Most of her online clients never paid her reliably, and a few she had alienated completely. She started applying for better positions, but her resume had more gaps than history. People weren't buying the brand strategist title anymore. After 3 weeks, she took a job at a casual restaurant as a server. Someone recognized her there and sent me a message. "Is this Amy? She's working at Oakview Bar." I didn't laugh. I didn't celebrate, but I couldn't ignore the irony. She once called me too predictable, mocked my steady routines, said she wanted a life with more spark. Now she was clocking in for minimum wage at a place where the neon sign flickered half the time. Meanwhile, my days were simple: work, gym, friends, quiet nights. No chaos, no performance, no walking on eggshells. Peace felt like wealth I never appreciated before. And Amy? She was finally living the life she claimed she didn't deserve, because she built it herself. A few months passed. My routine settled into something steady, almost effortless. One Friday night, my friend Michael invited me out to celebrate a new business contract I'd closed. We ended up at Oakview Bar, a place I hadn't visited in years. We grabbed a table near the back. Michael ordered drinks. I went to the bar to pay, and that's when I heard it. A familiar voice, muted but unmistakable. "Order for table 6? I turned slowly. Amy stood behind the counter wearing the bar's black t-shirt, her hair tied back. She looked smaller somehow, tired. Not broken, just stripped of the persona she used to wear like armor. Our eyes met. For a second, she froze. Then she forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Edward," she said quietly, "I didn't expect you here." I nodded once. "Evening, Amy." She glanced down at the counter, fingers tapping nervously. "I've been working, trying to get things together. I didn't fill the silence for her. I didn't rescue the moment the way I used to. After a few seconds, she tried again. I know I made a mess. I know things got out of hand. She swallowed. I didn't think it would turn out like this. I simply said, life catches up to all of us. Her face tightened, not in anger, but in acceptance. I hope you're doing well, she murmured. I am, I said. I hope you figure things out. Nothing more. No accusations. No reminders of what she did. No final lecture. I paid the tab, nodded politely, and walked back to Michael. When we left a little later, I glanced toward the bar one last time. Amy was wiping down a counter, moving quietly, avoiding everyone's eyes. There was no satisfaction in seeing her like that. Just closure. The kind that settles in your chest and stays there. That night, I realized the truth. She didn't ruin my birthday. She freed my life, and that was the best gift she ever gave me. Thank you for watching.